Take Your Shot, How to Break Through the Fear and Start Playing to Win in Business and Life by me, Josh Zieglowsky. To Taryn and my kids for always believing me, thank you. And I want to take a moment before I start with the introduction that I want to say thank you to all the people that supported me, both in the, getting this book out, to even the haters and the people that didn't believe in me, early on in my life or whatnot. I know that wasn't on purpose, but it did fuel me to be a better person, be a better father, friend, husband to many. So you're going to hear me stutter. You're going to hear me say the wrong words. Probably I'm not the best reader, but I did want to go through the introduction and have you guys hear my voice. Introduction. Let me ask you, what's holding you back? Seriously, it's the question that unlocks everything. It forces you to face the fears and excuses, the mental blocks keeping you from making your move. If you're reading this, you probably have an idea you've been sitting on, maybe for years. You tell yourself one day, but apprehension keeps you stuck. I get it. I really do. Because I've been there. At 21, I walked away from a comfortable loan officer job, pulling in $6,000 a month. Everyone thought I was set. But my gut screamed, you're capable of more. So I jumped into the unknown, working entirely on commission and no safety net. Terrifying, absolutely. Mistakes, more than I can count. But taking that initial leap changed my life forever. Most people wait for the perfect time, but it never comes. They let fear win. Here's the truth. There's no perfect time. There's only now. The title, Take Your Shot, comes straight from my background in sports. Whether on the basketball court or football field, I learned early that progress comes from persistence, seizing chances even when pigeonholed, and proving people wrong, lessons that apply directly to chasing any dream. This book isn't theory or fluff. It's about breaking through the fear, about learning how to act, how to make your move, even when you don't feel ready. I'll share my wins, losses, and everything in between to give you the tools and mindset to stop hesitating and start moving. Success isn't about having all the answers. It's about being resourceful, learning from missteps, and being willing to fall, fail, learn, and try again. It's about stepping outside your comfort zone because comfort is the enemy of growth. The life you want is waiting on the other side of fear. This journey is intertwined with my family. Their belief fuels my drive. It was incredibly special when my 9-year-old daughter designed a book cover concept for this book, a reminder of why I keep going for it. So are you ready to take yours? Let's start with the absolute bedrock of making anything happen. Take your shot.
Chapter 1. Taking action. Action is the foundational key to all success. Pablo Picasso. Here's the truth. Acting is the single most important thing you can do to change your life. You can have the best ideas in the world, read every book, attend every seminar, and take all the notes you want. But if you don't do something with any of it, it's worthless. Dreams without movement are just that. Dreams. I've seen it over and over, not just in my own life, but in the lives of people around me. It's not the smartest person in the room who wins. It's not the one with the most resources or even the best plan. The person who wins is the one who acts, the one who jumps in, figures things out along the way, and keeps moving forward no matter what. The best part? The willingness to act is a skill you can develop. Like a muscle, it gets stronger with practice. Action versus reaction. Here's something you might not realize. Your gut is faster than your brain. That instinct, that little voice telling you, go for it, is one of your greatest tools. But here's the thing. Most people ignore it. They hesitate. They overthink. They let fear and doubt creep in. And then the opportunity slips away. Acting on gut feelings, despite apprehension and uncertainty, can lead to pivotal life decisions. It's often the catalyst for everything that follows. When you act on your gut instincts, something incredible happens. You start to build confidence in yourself. You learn to trust your ability to figure things out. And the more you move, the more momentum you build. Before you know it, you realize that taking initiative isn't just a one-time thing. It's a way of life. Accountability, the secret weapon. Let's be real, taking action isn't always easy. Sometimes you need a little extra push to get moving. That's where accountability comes in. When I attended my first real estate conference at age 23, I met one of my early mentors, Jeff Rappaport. During one session, someone asked him, "What's the secret to success in real estate?" I remember getting my pen and paper ready, eager to write down some profound wisdom. Jeff paused and said, "You guys want to know the secret? It's just 2 words." Everyone leaned in. "Problem solving," he stated. If you become a great problem solver in business or real estate, you'll become successful. It takes time, and you'll face plenty of challenges, like arrows coming at you. But as you keep solving problems, you learn to dodge those arrows. That advice stuck with me. Later, when I wanted to sign up for his coaching, which cost at $7,500, I couldn't afford it. But remembering his emphasis on problem solving, I found a solution. I partnered with someone who believed in me enough to pay for the coaching in exchange for a split of profits from my first deals. Knowing she had invested in me, that accountability, tied to Jeff's core lesson about problem solving, pushed me to make it happen. If you're struggling to get started, find someone who can hold you accountable. It doesn't have to be a business partner. It could be a mentor, a coach, or even a trusted friend who checks in with you regularly. When someone else is counting on you to deliver, you'll find yourself stepping up in ways you never thought possible. Action is a muscle. The truth is, most people think they're action takers, but they're not. They're dabblers. They're waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect idea, the perfect timing, the perfect plan. Let me save you some time. Perfect doesn't exist. Taking action is like going to the gym. The first time you walk in, it's going to feel awkward and uncomfortable. Your muscles might ache. You'll second guess whether you even belong there. But the more you show up, the stronger you get. It's the same with making a move. The more you push yourself to take risks, try new things, and move forward despite the fear, the easier it becomes. But here's the catch. Most people let excuses get in the way. I've heard them all. I don't have the time. I'm too busy. What if I fail? I'm too old. Let me be blunt. These are all forms of a scarcity mindset. If you keep focusing on what you don't have, time, money, energy, you'll never have enough of it. Success requires you to shift your focus. Stop looking at what you lack and start making the most of what you have. Trust me, you already have everything you need to take the first step. Takeaways. 1. Trust your gut. Your instincts are powerful. Listen to them and act quickly before fear sets in. 2. Start now. The perfect time doesn't exist. Use what you have and take the first step today. 3. Accountability is key. Find someone to hold you accountable, a mentor, partner, or trusted friend. 4. Build your action muscle. Start small, take consistent action, and watch your confidence grow. 5. Shift to an abundance mindset. Focus on what you can do with what you have, not on what you lack. Now, taking that first action is crucial. But what happens when things don't go as planned? That leads us to the next vital principle. Chapter 2. Keep shooting. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. Michael Jordan. One phrase I constantly repeat, whether coaching kids' basketball teams, talking with friends, or teaching my own children, is keep shooting. Think about a basketball player having a bad game, missing shot after shot. The worst thing they can do is stop trying altogether. The only way to break out of a slump is to keep taking those attempts, trusting that eventually they'll start falling again. The same applies in life and business. When you make mistakes or face setbacks, it's easy to want to retreat and stop trying. But you have to keep going for it. Keep pushing forward. That persistence, even when things aren't going perfectly, is how you overcome challenges and ultimately find success. Don't let a few misses take you out of the game. Keep shooting. Here's the thing no one wants to admit. If you want to succeed, you have to make mistakes. There's no way around it. Missteps aren't just inevitable, they're necessary. They're how you learn, how you grow, and how you build resilience. But here's the catch. Most people are terrified of failure. They avoid it at all costs, which means they also avoid the opportunities that come with taking risks. The result, they stay stuck, paralyzed by fear, and never reach their potential. I get it. No one likes to mess up, but if you shift your perspective, you'll see that every error you make is actually a stepping stone toward your success. Bastai. The power of embracing mistakes. Remember what my mentor Jeff said about problem solving? Becoming a great problem solver is the foundation of success. Mistakes and challenges are inevitable. They're the problems you need to solve. Each misstep you learn from makes you better at dodging the next arrow, sharpening your problem-solving skills. Every deal I've closed, every hurdle I've faced, and every lesson I've learned came down to solving problems, and most of those problems came from mistakes I made. The truth is, errors force you to get creative. They make you think outside the box and find solutions you never would have considered otherwise. That's why I tell people, don't fear errors, embrace them. Learn from them. Let them sharpen your skills. Breaking free from the mistakes are bad mentality. Growing up, we're taught that mistakes are something to be avoided. In school, you get marked down for every wrong answer. At church, you're warned about the consequences of doing the wrong thing. That kind of conditioning runs deep, and it's one of the biggest reasons people hesitate to take risks as adults. But here's the truth. Errors are not the end of the road. They're just part of the journey. Every successful entrepreneur, athlete, and innovator you admire has made more mistakes than you can imagine. The difference is, they didn't let those setbacks define them. They used them as fuel to get better. Why making mistakes is crucial. Here's a lesson I've learned the hard way. If you're not making errors, you're not trying hard enough. Every stumble is a sign that you're pushing beyond your comfort zone. It means you're taking risks, testing limits, and learning as you go. Think about the most successful people in history: Thomas Edison, Michael Jordan, even Elon Musk. What do they all have in common? They made countless mistakes on their way to greatness. Edison famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's the mindset you need to embrace if you want to succeed. Errors aren't failures. They're feedback. Each one gives you valuable information about what works and what doesn't. The more missteps you make, the faster you learn and improve. My $2,000 mistake. When I was a kid, I made a mistake that stuck with me for years. My parents had saved a big tax return, about $2,000, and kept it in a shoebox in their office. I thought I could use that money to join a neighborhood club by handing out cash to the other kids. I didn't understand the value of money yet, but I sure learned it quickly. When my parents realized what I'd done, they were furious. They marched me back to every house to collect the money. I was humiliated, and that night was one of the toughest of my life. Looking back, that mistake taught me a lesson about trust, responsibility, and consequences. At the time, it felt like the end of the world, but it shaped who I am today. That's the thing about errors. They hurt in the moment, but the lessons they teach you can last a lifetime. The transformation, from fearful to fearless. I wasn't always comfortable making errors. In fact, for a long time I was terrified of messing up. I worried about what people would think, how it would affect my reputation, and whether I'd ever recover. But over time, I realized that the fear of failure was holding me back, more than the failures themselves ever could. Even facing dark moments and coming through them showed me that the worst-case scenario isn't usually as bad as we build it up in our minds. From that point on, I stopped fearing slip-ups and started seeing them as opportunities to grow. Making mistakes is how you win. Here's a mindset shift that changed everything for me. Errors are the cost of doing business. They're not setbacks. They're setups for your next big win. The more you stumble, the more you learn, and the closer you get to mastery. Sometimes, the most valuable lessons come from investments that don't yield immediate returns. Early in my commercial real estate journey, I invested $100,000 to work with a mentor named Marco. While the initial deals we worked on together didn't turn a profit, the experience was invaluable. Marco got me in the game. Before him, I thought commercial real estate was only for people with vast amounts of capital. He opened my eyes to the possibilities, teaching me about different deal structures and terms I knew nothing about, despite having been in real estate for over 10 years. That investment, though not profitable in the short term, gave me the foundational knowledge and experience needed to understand the commercial world. It showed me what was possible and helped me identify what kind of mentorship I needed next to truly succeed in that space. It was the entry fee to a whole new level of the game. Later, I connected with another mentor, Scott Scheel, who built upon that foundation, and the combination propelled my success forward. Redefining failure. Our culture does a terrible job of teaching us how to handle failure. From the time we're kids, we're taught to avoid mistakes at all costs. You get a bad grade on a test, and it feels like the end of the world. You mess up at work, and you're terrified your boss will come down on you. But here's the thing. Failure isn't final. It's not a dead end. It's a detour. And in entrepreneurship, failure is part of the job description. When I teach real estate classes, I always tell my students, if you're afraid to make mistakes, this isn't the business for you. Because let's be honest, real estate is messy. Deals fall apart, financing collapses, partners flake out. If you can't handle that, you won't last long. But if you can embrace those moments, learn from them, and keep moving forward, you'll develop an edge that most people never will. The difference between winners and quitters isn't the number of times they fail. It's how they respond when failure happens. The key to growth. If you've been avoiding missteps, it's time to flip the script. Instead of seeing errors as something to fear, start seeing them as opportunities to grow. Learn from every mistake. After every failure, take time to reflect. Ask yourself, what went wrong? What can I do differently next time? Write it down if you need to. The point is to extract the lesson and apply it moving forward. Surround yourself with the right people. Find mentors, peers, and friends who understand that failure is part of the journey. These are the people who will encourage you to keep going when things get tough. Take calculated risks. Making mistakes doesn't mean being reckless. Do your homework, make informed decisions, and be intentional about the risks you take. Remember, slip-ups don't define you. Your response to them does. Takeaways. 1. Shift your mindset. Mistakes aren't failures. They're feedback. Use them to grow. 2. Reflect and adjust. After every mistake, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I improve? 3. Take calculated risks. Step out of your comfort zone, but do your homework first. 4. Find support. Surround yourself with people who understand the value of failing forward. 5. Keep going. Don't let fear of failure hold you back. The only real failure is giving up. Learning from errors is essential, but errors often happen most frequently when you're just launching something new. So, how do you navigate those crucial first steps? Chapter 3. Getting started. The secret of getting ahead is getting started. Mark Twain. Let's revisit the question I asked in the introduction. What's holding you back? For most people, it's not a lack of knowledge, resources, or even time. It's fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not knowing what to do next. Fear is often the biggest hurdle at the starting line. I saw this clearly even with my own daughter, Grace. When she was about 7 or 8, she came to me, inspired by seeing me work, and said, "Dad, I want to start my own business." My first response wasn't about business plans or products. I told her, "That's great, but before we even think about what your business will be, let's talk about fear. We need to work through the fear of failure and the fear of rejection first." She looked puzzled initially, but after we talked for a while, she started to understand. So many potentially great ideas stall because people write the plan but haven't addressed the underlying psychology of fear that stops them from executing it. Dealing with that apprehension has to be step one. Here's the thing. Beginning is always the hardest part. It's that first step that feels like climbing a mountain. But once you take it, momentum kicks in. And each step after that gets easier. I've seen so many people with amazing ideas and potential stall out because they get stuck at the starting line. They overthink, wait for the perfect moment, or tell themselves they're not ready. Spoiler alert. You'll never feel 100% ready. The key is to start anyway. Find the right person. One of the biggest mistakes people make when they're beginning is turning to the wrong people for advice. Let's say you've got a brilliant business idea. You're excited and you want to share it with someone. So you tell your friend, your spouse, or a coworker. And instead of encouragement, you get a barrage of negativity. That sounds risky. Do you really think that will work? I know someone who tried something similar and they failed. Sound familiar? The problem isn't your idea, it's who you're sharing it with. If you want to succeed, you need to talk to people who get it. People who have been where you are, taken the risks, and come out the other side. I remember talking to a friend of mine about his dream. He had a passion and talent for a specific hands-on craft he loved. He had a full-time job, but dreamed of turning this passion into his own business. He had the skills and the desire, but like many people, he was stuck on how to launch, especially with the time commitment of his day job. So, I gave him the same advice I give anyone hesitant to begin. Treat your dream like a part-time job. Schedule dedicated time for it, just like you would for any paid position. Maybe a couple of evenings a week and part of the weekend. Show up for those shifts consistently. That commitment is how you build momentum and turn a dream into a reality, even when starting small. The takeaway here is simple. If you want to get going, find the right person to help you. Someone who can give you advice, guide you, and hold you accountable. And most importantly, someone who believes in your vision as much as you do. Treat it like a job. Here's something most aspiring entrepreneurs get wrong. They treat their dreams like hobbies. They work on them when they have time or feel like it, and then wonder why nothing ever takes off. The truth is, if you want your dream to become a reality, you have to treat it like a job, because that's what it is. I'll give you an example. When I first started learning real estate, I was still working a 9-to-5 job at a credit union. My schedule was packed, but I wanted to make real estate my future, so I treated it like a part-time job. I blocked off time every Wednesday evening and all day Saturday to work on my real estate business. Was it exhausting? Yes. Were there days when I wanted to skip it? Absolutely. But I held myself accountable, just like I would for any other job. And over time, that consistency paid off. Here's what I told my friend. Imagine you take a part-time job at a restaurant, like Outback Steakhouse. You'd have a set schedule, say Wednesday nights and Saturday mornings, and you'd be expected to show up every single shift. No excuses. Now, apply that same mindset to your dream. Set a schedule, stick to it, and treat it like a commitment you can't break. It might feel like a grind at first, but that's how you build momentum. The long game. One of the hardest things about the initial phase is that the payoff isn't immediate. Unlike a traditional job, where you clock in, work a shift, and get a paycheck at the end of the week, entrepreneurship requires patience. You have to put in the work long before you see the rewards. That's where most people get stuck. They want results now, and when they don't see immediate success, they give up. But here's the truth. Success isn't instant. It's earned over time. Believing in what you're doing and sticking with it, even when returns aren't immediate, is crucial. Those efforts will pay off. Getting started isn't about instant gratification. It's about playing the long game. It's about trusting the process, staying consistent, and having the patience to let your hard work compound over time. Focus on the bigger picture. In the short term, entrepreneurship doesn't always make sense. Why would you work so hard for so little payoff? Why would you sacrifice weekends or evenings when you could just enjoy life like everyone else? Here's why. The long-term rewards are worth it. When you focus on the bigger picture, you realize that the sacrifices you make today are investments in your future. You're building something that will give you freedom, flexibility, and fulfillment down the road. So, don't get discouraged if the results aren't immediate. Keep your eyes on the prize, and remember why you started in the first place. Takeaways. 1. Find the right people. Share your ideas with people who understand and support your vision, not those who bring negativity. 2. Treat it like a job. Set a schedule for your dream and commit to it consistently, just like you would with any other job. 3. Be patient. Success takes time. Stay focused on the long game and trust the process. 4. Focus on the bigger picture. The sacrifices you make today are investments in your future, freedom, and success. Learning from errors is essential, but errors often happen most frequently when you're just launching something new. So, let's explore how to navigate those crucial first steps. Chapter 4. Perfect practice. Practice does not make perfect. Only perfect practice makes perfect. Vince Lombardi. Let me ask you something. How do you know you're getting better at something? Is it just by putting in the hours, or is it about how you spend those hours? Most people assume that if they show up and try, improvement will follow. But here's the truth. Effort alone isn't enough. If you're practicing the wrong way, you're only reinforcing bad habits, and those habits can hold you back. This lesson first clicked for me back in my college basketball days. My coach had a saying that I still live by. Perfect practice makes perfect. He drilled this into our heads every time we hit the court. It wasn't just about taking shots, it was about taking them the right way. Because if your form is off, it doesn't matter how many shots you take. You're not going to improve. This principle doesn't just apply to basketball. It applies to everything: business, relationships, communication, even personal growth. It's not enough to just show up and try. You have to show up and do it right. However, while the ideal is perfect practice makes perfect, it's crucial to remember that action itself is still the foundation. Don't let the pursuit of perfection lead to inaction. Sometimes you have to start practicing even before you know exactly what perfect looks like. The key is to remain coachable and curious while you practice. Ask questions, seek feedback, continuously work on sharpening the saw, as Stephen Covey calls it. Imperfect action combined with a commitment to learning and refinement is far better than no action at all while waiting for elusive perfection. You learn and adjust by doing. The danger of bad habits. When I started out in real estate, I didn't fully understand this concept. I thought I could figure it out on my own. I worked hard, hustled, and put in the hours. But I wasn't getting the results I wanted. It took me a while to realize why. I was practicing bad habits. Here's an example. Early on, I wasn't taking the time to properly analyze deals. I'd skim over the numbers, trust my gut, and rush to close. And while that approach sometimes worked, it backfired more often than not. I lost money on deals that could have been profitable if I'd just done my homework. It wasn't until I started working with a mentor that things changed. He taught me how to slow down, follow a process, and focus on the fundamentals. It wasn't easy at first. It felt like starting from scratch. But over time, I realized that perfecting the basics was the key to success. Bad habits are like cracks in the foundation. You might not notice them right away, but over time, they'll cause everything you've built to crumble. That's why it's so important to catch them early and correct them. Realizing the cost of imperfect practice. One of the hardest lessons I learned in real estate was the cost of doing things the wrong way. Early in my career, I got involved in a deal that looked great on paper. I was excited, eager to make it work, and rushed in without triple-checking the numbers. I trusted my gut instead of sticking to a solid process. Guess what happened? The deal fell apart. I lost time, money, and confidence. It would have been easy to blame external factors, the market, the seller, bad timing, but deep down, I knew the truth. The problem wasn't the deal. The problem was me. I hadn't practiced the right way, and that was on me. It was a painful realization, but it forced me to reevaluate my approach. I asked myself, what am I doing wrong? How can I improve? What systems can I put in place to avoid this in the future? That failure wasn't the end. It was a turning point. It showed me the importance of practicing intentionally and perfecting the fundamentals. Learning from mentors. After that deal, I made a commitment. I was going to learn from the best. I sought out mentors who had been where I wanted to go, people who knew the ins and outs of the business and could help me avoid costly mistakes. One of the first lessons my mentor drilled into me was this: you don't have to reinvent the wheel. He showed me systems, processes, and habits that were already proven to work. All I had to do was follow them and make them my own. Here's the thing about mentors. They don't just teach you what to do. They teach you what not to do. They help you avoid the traps and shortcuts that can derail your progress. And sometimes, the lessons they teach you aren't easy. They might tell you to slow down, reevaluate, or go back to the basics when all you want to do is keep moving forward. But that's what intentional practice is all about. It's not about speed. It's about precision. It's about doing the small things right over and over again until they become second nature. The power of repetition. Practicing correctly isn't a one-time thing. It's not something you do for a week or a month and then move on. It's about building habits through consistent repetition. Think about athletes. They don't just practice occasionally, they train every day. They focus on the fundamentals, tweaking their form and technique until it's flawless. Why? Because when the pressure's on, they can't afford to think about the basics. Those have to be automatic. The same principle applies in business. When you're in the middle of a high-stakes negotiation or closing a deal, you don't have time to second-guess yourself. That's why it's so important to practice the right way. The habits you build in the quiet moments will carry you through the big ones. Focus on the fundamentals. Effective practice isn't about overcomplicating things. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about simplifying. It's about focusing on the fundamentals and doing them really, really well. For example, in real estate, the fundamentals are things like analyzing deals, building relationships, and negotiating contracts. If you can master those basics, everything else becomes easier. The problem is, most people skip the fundamentals because they seem boring or tedious. They want to jump straight to the big wins without putting in the foundational work. But here's the truth. Skipping the fundamentals is a shortcut to failure. You can't build a skyscraper on a shaky foundation. If you want to succeed, you have to be willing to do the boring work and do it consistently. The compound effect of perfect practice. Here's what makes effective practice so powerful. It compounds over time. Every time you practice the right way, you're building momentum. The small improvements you make each day add up to big results over weeks, months, and years. Think of it like investing. If you put a little money into an account every month and let it grow with interest, you'll end up with a fortune over time. Perfect practice works the same way. The effort you put in today might not pay off immediately, but over time, it will create exponential growth. This is why it's so important to stay consistent. Even when it feels like you're not making progress, trust the process. Keep practicing correctly, and the results will come. Perfect practice in your daily life. Intentional practice isn't just for business or sports. It's something you can apply to every area of your life. Whether it's improving your communication skills, strengthening your relationships, or even managing your time better, the principles are the same. Start small. Focus on one habit or skill at a time. Trying to perfect everything all at once will only lead to frustration. Be intentional. Approach every opportunity as a chance to refine and improve. Whether it's a meeting, a sales pitch, or a conversation with a loved one, show up with purpose. Seek feedback. Don't be afraid to ask for input. Often others can spot blind spots or offer perspectives you might miss on your own. Stay consistent. Remember, growth doesn't happen overnight. Commit to the process and trust that the results will come. Why perfect practice will change your life. The difference between success and mediocrity isn't talent or luck, it's habits. Perfect practice allows you to build the habits that set you apart. It's what separates the people who stay stuck in good enough from those who reach their full potential. Here's the best part. Anyone can do this. Effective practice isn't about being perfect. It's about striving for improvement every day. It's about showing up, putting in the effort, and learning from every experience. So here's my challenge to you. The next time you sit down to work on your dream, ask yourself, am I practicing the right way? If the answer is no, it's okay. Use that as your starting point. Adjust your approach, focus on the fundamentals, and commit to practicing effectively. Because when you do, you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish. Takeaways. 1. Practice the right way. Focus on doing things correctly, not just doing them often. 2. Learn from mentors. Seek guidance from people who've been where you want to go. 3. Focus on the fundamentals. Master the basics before moving on to more advanced skills. 4. Embrace feedback. Use input from others to refine and improve. 5. Trust the process. Perfect practice compounds over time, so stay consistent and patient. Practicing effectively builds skill, but skill alone won't get you through the tough times. For that, you need something deeper, something that fuels your persistence. You need to keep going. Chapter 5. Remember why you started. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. Friedrich Nietzsche. Let's be real. Pursuing your dreams isn't always sunshine and smooth sailing. There will be hard days, long nights, and moments when you question whether it's all worth it. When those moments come, and they will, the thing that keeps you going isn't the money or the recognition. It's your why, season. Your why is your purpose. It's the reason you took the leap in the first place. It's what pushes you out of bed in the morning and drives you to keep moving forward, even when everything in you wants to quit. Without a strong motivation, it's easy to lose focus, burn out, and give up. That's why it's so important to remember why you started. When you keep your driving force front and center, it becomes your anchor, your compass, and your fuel. My why. For me, my purpose has always been about two things: freedom and family. Central to that family vision is my wife, Taryn. A huge part of my motivation is building a life where we can spend quality time together, nurturing a long-lasting relationship deep into our elderly years. It's about creating financial freedom so that we have the time and resources to enjoy life together and be present for our kids. I want the freedom to live life on my terms, to wake up every morning knowing I control my time, my income, and my future. I've been broke before, and I know how limiting it feels. That's not a life I want for myself or my family. But it's not just about my own freedom. My why is also about leaving a legacy for my kids. I want to teach them what's possible when you work hard, take risks, and chase your dreams. I want to give them opportunities I didn't have and set them up for a life where they're not just surviving, but thriving. That's what drives me. On the tough days, when I'm tired, stressed, or questioning everything, I think about my kids, I think about the future with Taryn, I think about the example I'm setting. And that's enough to get me back on track. The 7 layers deep exercise. If you're not clear on your core motivation, there's a powerful exercise I learned while consulting for a company owned by my friend, Sean Finnegan. It's called the 7 layers deep exercise. Even though I'd been an entrepreneur for years, I'd never formally done this, and it brought incredible clarity. It works like this. Start by asking yourself, why do I want to achieve this goal? Then take your answer and ask, why is that important? Repeat this process 7 times, peeling back the layers until you get to the core of your motivation. For example, why do I want to start my own business? Because I want to make more money. Why is making more money important? So I can pay off debt and build financial security. Why is financial security important? Because I don't want my family to struggle like I did growing up. Why is that important? Because I want to provide my kids with opportunities I never had. And so on. By the time you reach the 7th layer, you'll uncover the deeper reason driving your goals. This exercise isn't just helpful for clarifying your purpose, it also gives you something powerful to lean on when challenges arise. I know people I've worked with who still keep their 7 layers pinned up near their desk because it's such a potent reminder of their core motivation. Keeping your why front and center. It's one thing to know your purpose, but it's another to keep it front and center when life gets hectic. It's easy to lose sight of your motivation when you're knee-deep in the day-to-day grind, dealing with setbacks, or just trying to keep your head above water. That's why you need reminders, constant, visual, and undeniable reminders of what you're working toward and why it matters. For me, one of the most effective tools has been my vision board. It sits right in my office, and every day I see pictures of the goals I'm working toward, my family, the places I want to travel, the freedom I'm creating. It's not just a board, it's a daily reminder of what I'm fighting for. I even went a step further and bought a physical sign that hangs in my workspace. It's simple, but powerful, a reminder of the life I'm building for my family. Every time I see it, I remember why I started. What about you? What can you do to keep your driving force visible? Maybe it's a photo on your desk, a sticky note on your bathroom mirror, or a list of goals in your wallet. Whatever it is, make sure it's something you see every single day. Staying the course. When it gets hard. Let's face it, staying motivated when things are going well is easy. But when you hit roadblocks, when the deals aren't closing, the bills are piling up, or the results aren't coming as fast as you'd hoped, that's when your purpose is truly tested. I've had those moments more times than I can count. One of the toughest was during the 2008 financial crisis. Like so many others, I found myself on the brink of losing everything. There were foreclosure notices on my house, and my oldest son, just a kid at the time, would come home from school asking, "Dad, are we moving?" When I asked him why he thought that, he mentioned that parents of kids at school were saying we were moving. It hit me then. They knew. The foreclosure notice on our door was public record and people were talking. It's tough when your struggles become public knowledge, but it reinforced my resolve. I remember telling myself, okay, this is the bottom. The only way to go from here is up. That mindset, always looking up, always focusing on what I needed to do today and tomorrow to move upward, combined with my deep why for my family, got me through that incredibly dark time. Here's what I learned. When you're clear on your purpose, you can get through anything. The tough moments don't break you. They shape you. They give you the resilience, grit, and perspective you need to succeed. Your why will evolve. One thing to keep in mind is that your motivation isn't set in stone. It's going to evolve as you grow, as your priorities shift, and as life changes. When I was younger, my why was all about proving something to myself. I wanted to show that I could build a successful business, make good money, and create a life of freedom. But as I got older, my focus shifted. It became less about me and more about the legacy I'm leaving for my kids and the life I'm building with my wife. Your driving force might start with a desire to pay off debt, quit your job, or achieve financial independence. But over time, it might grow into something bigger, like giving back to your community, supporting your family, or making a lasting impact on the world. And that's a good thing. Growth means your purpose is expanding. The key is to stay connected to it, even as it changes. Takeaways. 1. Identify your why. Use exercises like the 7 Layers Deep method to uncover your core motivation. 2. Keep it visible. Create daily reminders of your why, like vision boards, photos, or written goals. 3. Stay grounded. During challenges, your why will help you push through tough times. Lean on it when things get hard. 4. Embrace evolution. Your why may change as you grow. Revisit and refine it regularly to stay aligned with your goals. 5. Make it personal. The stronger your emotional connection to your why, the more powerful it will be in driving you forward. Knowing your purpose fuels the journey, but there's still one major obstacle that stops most people before they even start. Let's tackle it head on. Chapter 6. Don't be afraid. Everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear. George Adair. Fear is natural. It's wired into us as humans. It's what kept our ancestors alive when they faced threats in the wild. But in today's world, that apprehension doesn't just protect us. It holds us back. It stops us from taking risks, trying new things, and pursuing our dreams. Here's the thing about fear. It's not going anywhere. You can't get rid of it completely, but you can learn to push through it. If you want to succeed in business and in life, you have to stop letting fear call the shots. My journey with fear. Making big decisions often involves confronting apprehension. Throughout my career, I've had moments where stepping into the unknown felt incredibly daunting. But I learned early on that staying in my comfort zone wasn't going to get me where I wanted to go. That's the thing about fear. It loves familiar territory. It tells you to stay where it's safe, where you know what to expect. But comfort is a trap. If you want to grow, you have to step out of it, even when it's scary. Each time you push past that boundary, you build resilience and prove to yourself what you're capable of. Overcoming fear through action. The best way to overcome apprehension is to face it head on. The longer you sit with fear, the bigger and scarier it becomes. But when you take action, even the smallest step, you start to shrink that anxiety down to size. One of the scariest moments in my real estate career came during a court battle early on. I was being investigated for a deal, and it felt like the walls were closing in on me. I was terrified. What if I lost everything? What if I couldn't bounce back? But instead of letting fear paralyze me, I did the only thing I could. I faced it. I hired the best attorney I could afford, told the truth, and showed up every day ready to fight. In the end, the case was dismissed, and I walked away stronger and wiser. The lesson? Fear is almost never as bad as we imagine it to be. When you take action, you strip fear of its power. Fear as a compass. Here's something I've learned. The things that scare you the most are often the things you need to do. Apprehension is like a compass. It points you toward the opportunities that matter. When I first started teaching real estate classes, I was terrified. Public speaking wasn't something I felt comfortable with, and I was worried about what people would think. But deep down, I knew it was a skill I needed to develop if I wanted to grow. So I leaned into the fear. I started small, speaking to groups of 5 or 10 people, and slowly built up my confidence. Over time, those small steps turned into big opportunities. Today, I speak to hundreds of people at a time, and it's one of my favorite parts of what I do. If something scares you, take that as a sign. Lean into it. That fear is pointing you toward growth. The stories we tell ourselves. Fear often stems from the stories we create in our minds. We imagine worst-case scenarios, failure, embarrassment, judgment, and we let those stories hold us hostage. The truth is, most of those fears are exaggerated, and some of them are flat-out lies. Think about it. How many times have you been afraid to do something, only to realize afterward that it wasn't nearly as bad as you thought? That's because fear thrives on uncertainty. The more you let it swirl around in your mind, the bigger it grows. Here's what I do when anxiety starts to creep in. I challenge the story. I ask myself, what's the worst that could actually happen? And most of the time, the answer isn't as catastrophic as my mind is making it out to be. For example, when I was launching my first real estate business, I was terrified of what would happen if I failed. Would people think I was a fraud? Would I lose everything? But when I took a step back, I realized the worst-case scenario was manageable. If the business didn't work out, I could always regroup, learn from the experience, and try again. By challenging the story, I took away fear's power. Fear versus regret. There's one thing scarier than failure, and that's regret. When you let fear stop you from taking action, you end up living with the what-ifs. I almost learned this the hard way during my sophomore year of high school football. I was getting frustrated, barely playing JV despite my skills, and I seriously considered quitting mid-season to focus on basketball. I went to talk to my varsity coach, Coach Grajek, who also knew me from basketball. I told him I wanted to quit, but he asked me to give him just 2 more weeks. I was skeptical, but I agreed. The very next week was the homecoming game against the top-ranked team in the state. After our defense gave up 2 long touchdown runs early, Coach Grajek took a chance. He pulled the starting cornerback and, seeing me on the sidelines, yelled, "Zieglowsky, you're in!" I'd never played cornerback before. I ran onto the field asking a teammate what to do. 3 plays later, they threw deep, and I intercepted it. By the end of the game, I had 4 interceptions, tying the state record at the time, and we won big. I ended up starting the rest of the year. That experience, going from nearly quitting out of frustration and fear to seizing an unexpected opportunity, was incredible. It's a powerful reminder of what can happen when you push through fear instead of letting it dictate your actions. Yet, one of my biggest regrets is still related to football, specifically not playing during my junior and senior years. As a sophomore, I had that incredible season, starting varsity after nearly quitting, making big plays, and tying the state record for interceptions. But heading into my junior year, I chose to focus only on basketball, letting fear of the unknown, or perhaps fear of not replicating that success, influence my decision. Looking back, watching the team reach the state championship game my junior year and win it all my senior year, I deeply regret not sticking with it. I missed out on those shared memories, the camaraderie, the chance to see what could have been. Regret stays with you longer than fear ever will. Fear fades the moment you act. Regret lingers because it's tied to the opportunities you let slip away. Fear is a skill builder. Here's the crazy thing about fear. It has a way of sharpening your skills. When you step into situations that scare you, you're forced to grow. You learn faster, adapt quicker, and build confidence in ways you never could if you stayed safe. Think about my first few real estate deals. Every time I walked into a negotiation, I was nervous. But those nerves made me prepare harder, ask better questions, and stay sharp during the process. Over time, the fear faded, but the skills stuck with me. The same goes for public speaking, starting a business, or trying anything new. The apprehension you feel in the beginning is your body's way of saying, "Pay attention. This is important." And once you push through it, you come out the other side stronger and more capable than ever. Takeaways. 1. Action shrinks fear. The longer you wait, the bigger fear grows. Take action to take control. 2. Fear points to growth. The things that scare you the most are often the things you need to do. 3. Challenge the story. Question the worst-case scenario. Most fears are exaggerations. 4. Fear fades, regret lingers. Don't let fear stop you from taking a shot. Regret stays with you far longer. 5. Use fear to build skills. Fear forces you to focus, prepare, and grow. Lean into it and let it sharpen you. Pushing past fear often means starting something new, maybe something small. And those early days, when you're just figuring things out, are crucial. Let's talk about Chapter 7. Humble Beginnings. Do not despise these small beginnings. The Bible. No one starts at the top. Every success story you've ever heard began with someone taking that first, often small and uncertain step. Whether it's building a business, learning a new skill, or chasing a dream, starting small is where the magic begins. It's easy to look at someone who's successful and think they've always had it together. But behind every polished result is a messy, imperfect start. The truth is, success isn't about where you begin, it's about how you grow from there. Starting small. When I first got into real estate, I wasn't closing big deals or building massive portfolios. I was knocking on doors, making cold calls, and figuring things out as I went. I didn't have a team, fancy tools, or years of experience. What I had was a willingness to start, even when it felt overwhelming. In those early days, I made mistakes. Lots of them. I said the wrong things, worked with the wrong people, and lost deals because I didn't know what I was doing. But here's the thing. That foundational phase taught me everything I needed to know to succeed later on. Starting small isn't a weakness. It's where you learn, grow, and build the base for everything that comes next. The struggle during those initial times is real, and it teaches you lessons you can't learn anywhere else. I remember one particular Saturday that really drove home what humble beginnings felt like, shortly after I started my mentorship with Jeff Rappaport. My partner and I didn't have a lot of money, but we knew we needed to find deals. We made it a habit to drive around on Saturdays, looking for properties in default and knocking on doors. On this specific Saturday, we still joke about it. We literally put all our nickels, dimes, and quarters together, scraping up maybe $5 or $6 from what we called our wives' piggy banks, just to get enough gas to drive around Ogden, Utah. When your resources are that thin, you learn pretty quickly to take advantage of every single opportunity. You visit every house possible. You maximize every minute, because you know that gas money won't last forever. It reinforces that mindset I've always held. When you're at the bottom, the only way to go is up. And that was the attitude we took. Sure enough, it worked out. Over the next couple of weeks, we landed 3 or 4 deals in that Ogden area. Looking back, remembering how we scraped together gas money helps keep things in perspective and reminds me how far we've come, but also the value of those hungry early days. The power of being a beginner. One of the biggest advantages of starting from scratch is that it forces you to stay curious and open to learning. When you're a beginner, you're not bogged down by ego or bad habits. You're willing to ask questions, seek help, and try new things. Mentors always emphasize the importance of staying teachable. You can only become a great problem solver if you're willing to learn, adapt, and admit you don't have all the answers. When you're willing to admit that, you open yourself up to endless possibilities. Learning through the struggles. Starting small comes with its fair share of struggles. For me, the early part of my career was filled with challenges that tested my resolve. I remember teaching myself the basics of real estate by watching videos and attending classes, only to leave more confused than when I started. I didn't know the lingo, and I was too embarrassed to ask questions because I didn't want to look foolish. But here's the thing. Those moments of struggle were where the real growth happened. Every time I hit a roadblock, I learned something new. I figured out how to analyze deals, negotiate better, and handle setbacks. Looking back, I wouldn't trade those struggles for anything. They made me who I am today. The advantage of being underestimated. One of the greatest perks of starting small is that people often underestimate you. When you're just beginning, no one sees you as a threat. That gives you the freedom to learn, experiment, and grow without the pressure of expectations. When I was a young real estate investor, I used to walk into rooms full of seasoned professionals and feel out of place. I thought they were judging me or dismissing me because of my lack of experience. But what I didn't realize at the time was that being underestimated was a gift. Because no one was watching me too closely, I could take risks, make mistakes, and learn from them. By the time people started paying attention, I had already sharpened my skills and built a solid foundation. If you feel overlooked or underestimated, embrace it. Use that space to your advantage. It's your time to lay the groundwork for your future success. Building the foundation. Starting out isn't glamorous, but it's essential. Every great business, career, or accomplishment is built on a foundation that starts with the basics. Those early unpolished efforts where you're figuring things out as you go. When I was beginning in real estate, my foundation wasn't flashy. I didn't have big resources or a fancy network. What I had was a notebook full of scribbled notes, a handful of cold leads, and a relentless drive to make something happen. It was slow at first. I'd knock on doors, spend hours learning how to run numbers on properties, and get turned down more times than I could count. But every rejection taught me something. Every mistake helped me refine my approach. And little by little, I started to see progress. Those early efforts, the unglamorous, grinded-out kind of work, are what set you up for long-term success. Staying grounded as you grow. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is the importance of staying connected to your beginnings, even as you grow. It's easy to get caught up in success and forget where you came from. But when you lose sight of those early struggles, you lose the perspective and grit that got you where you are. Even today, I remind myself of those early days, knocking on doors, fumbling through presentations, and learning the hard way. It keeps me grounded and grateful for how far I've come. Starting small doesn't just teach you skills, it teaches you humility. It reminds you that success is earned, not handed out. And no matter how much you achieve, there's always more to learn and more room to grow. Takeaways. 1. Start small. Humble beginnings are where you learn, grow, and build the foundation for success. 2. Stay curious. Being a beginner keeps you open to learning and asking questions. Use that to your advantage. 3. Learn from struggles. Challenges are your best teachers. Each mistake strengthens your skills and resilience. 4. Embrace being underestimated. Use the freedom of being overlooked to experiment, grow, and refine your craft. 5. Never forget where you started. Staying connected to your humble beginnings keeps you grounded and motivated. Remembering where you started keeps you grounded. But to keep moving forward, you need another essential ingredient. Chapter 8. Stay hungry. Stay hungry, stay foolish. Steve Jobs. Success is a moving target. The moment you think you've arrived, it slips further down the road. That's why staying hungry is so important. It's what keeps you striving for more, pushing past comfort, and constantly growing into the best version of yourself. When you look at highly successful people, there's one trait they all share: they never settle. Whether they've built multi-million-dollar businesses, broken records, or reached the pinnacle of their careers, they all keep pushing. Why? Because they know success isn't permanent. It requires effort, focus, and discipline every single day. Comfort is the enemy. One of the biggest challenges to staying driven is the trap of comfort. It's natural to want to take your foot off the gas once you've achieved a goal. You think, I've worked hard, I deserve to rest. And while rest is important, the danger lies in getting too comfortable. I've fallen into this trap before. Early in my career, I worked relentlessly to close my first few deals. Once the money started coming in, I told myself, I've earned this break, but that break turned into a slump. I wasn't chasing leads as hard, I wasn't learning new strategies, and my results started to plateau. That experience taught me an important lesson. Comfort is the enemy of growth. Success doesn't sustain itself. If you're not actively working to improve, you're slipping backward. Staying hungry means recognizing when you're getting too comfortable and snapping yourself out of it. The importance of growth. Hunger is about more than ambition. It's about growth. It's about becoming better every day, no matter where you are in your journey. Growth doesn't always mean chasing bigger deals or making more money. Sometimes it's about improving your mindset, sharpening your skills, or strengthening your relationships. For me, staying motivated often means taking on challenges that force me to grow. Like the time I decided to expand from residential to commercial real estate. I had no idea what I was doing when I started. I had to learn a completely new set of skills, build new relationships, and step way out of my comfort zone. It was scary, but it was also exciting, and it reignited my drive. The key is to always look for ways to stretch yourself. If you're not growing, you're stagnating. And stagnation is the quickest way to lose momentum. Hunger born from rejection. Sometimes staying driven isn't about avoiding complacency. It's about the fire ignited when someone tells you that you're not good enough. I learned this lesson deeply through sports growing up. My parents got me involved early, and being a tall kid in Morgan, Utah, I was always put at the center position. We had good teams, won championships. But around 6th grade, a couple of coaches saw I had some ball handling skills and suggested I try playing guard. That opened things up for me. By 8th grade, I was noticed by an AAU team, tried out, and made the team. But here's where the hunger really kicked in. That same year, I tried out for a local Morgan AAU team coached by a friend's dad. I didn't make it. Only one kid from a neighboring town made it. The rest were from Morgan. I was devastated. It felt like a huge rejection in my small town. Then, a gentleman named Kirk Miles approached me. He knew my dad, and he suggested, maybe half-jokingly, let's start a second-tier team with the kids who got cut. Let's see if we can beat them by the end of the year at the Morgan Lions Club tournament. So, we did. We gathered the kids who hadn't made the main team and started practicing. The first time we scrimmaged the team I'd been cut from, we lost by 1 or 2 points on a controversial call. Still devastating. But it fueled us. We worked incredibly hard together, playing in multiple leagues. When the Lions Club tournament came around at the end of our 8th grade year, a big deal in Morgan County, we faced them in the championship game, and we beat them. They were devastated. We were ecstatic. I ended up being named MVP of the tournament. Think about that trajectory. At the start of 8th grade, I wasn't chosen for the local team. By 9th grade, my high school coach asked me to skip the freshman team and play JV. By 10th grade, my sophomore year, I was starting varsity point guard. That 2-year journey from being cut to starting varsity is something I always share. Being told no, being rejected, that fueled a hunger to work harder and prove myself. That kind of drive, born from adversity, is incredibly powerful. Don't let rejection extinguish your fire. Let it feed your ambition to keep shooting and get better. Finding your next mountain. Staying hungry means always looking for your next mountain to climb. It doesn't matter how much you've achieved, there's always another challenge waiting for you. The problem is, most people stop looking once they reach a certain level of success. They get comfortable. But here's the truth. Drive comes from chasing something bigger than yourself. Whether it's mastering a new skill, launching a new business, or making a greater impact on your community, your next goal is what keeps the fire alive. For me, a significant next mountain came when I saw an opportunity to pivot into a completely new business venture outside of my established real estate success. It required starting from scratch, learning a complex new field, understanding regulations, and figuring out how to serve a different client base. Taking on that steep learning curve and building something new from the ground up didn't just lead to business growth. It reignited my passion for the entrepreneurial challenge itself. If you're feeling stuck, ask yourself, what's my next mountain? Feeding the fire. Staying ambitious isn't something that happens automatically. It's something you have to actively cultivate. If you're not intentional about feeding the fire, it's easy to let it burn out. Here are some strategies I use to stay motivated and driven. Set new goals. Success isn't a finish line. Every time you hit a milestone, set another one. The key is to keep moving forward. Surround yourself with winners. The people you spend time with have a huge influence on your mindset. If you're surrounded by people who are hungry for growth, that energy will rub off on you. Celebrate progress. Take time to recognize your wins, no matter how small. Celebrating progress reminds you why you started and fuels your desire to keep going. Learn continuously. Staying curious keeps your mind sharp and your drive alive. Read books, attend seminars, and challenge yourself to learn something new every day. Hunger isn't just about you. One of the most powerful ways to stay driven is to tie your goals to something bigger than yourself. For me, that means thinking about my family. Every time I feel like taking my foot off the gas, I think about the example I'm setting for my kids. I want them to see what's possible when you work hard, stay focused, and never give up. Ambition can also come from wanting to make a difference. Maybe you want to give back to your community, help others achieve their dreams, or create something that leaves a lasting legacy. When your goals are tied to a purpose bigger than yourself, it becomes easier to stay motivated, even when the going gets tough. Avoiding complacency. One of the sneakiest enemies of drive is complacency. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It creeps in slowly, disguised as satisfaction. You hit a milestone, feel good about your progress, and tell yourself, it's okay to take a break. But before you know it, that short break turns into a long pause, and you're no longer moving forward. Complacency happens to everyone at some point. It's human nature to want to rest after achieving something significant. But the key to staying hungry is recognizing when complacency is creeping in and taking action to course correct. For me, I use discomfort as a signal. If things start to feel too easy, I know it's time to raise the bar. Whether it's by setting a bigger goal, stepping into a new challenge, or revisiting areas where I can improve, I make sure I'm always stretching myself. The antidote to complacency is growth. If you keep challenging yourself, you'll never run out of reasons to stay motivated. The long game. Staying ambitious isn't just about what you do today. It's about what you're building for the future. Success is a marathon, not a sprint, and hunger is what keeps you going for the long haul. Think of it like compounding interest. The small, consistent efforts you make every day add up over time. Each action you take builds on the last, creating momentum that propels you forward. But that momentum only lasts if you keep feeding it. One of the most important lessons I've learned is to focus on the process, not just the outcome. When you fall in love with the process, learning, growing, and improving, the results take care of themselves. Hunger isn't about chasing quick wins. It's about committing to the journey. Every day is a new opportunity. The beauty of staying hungry is that it gives you a fresh start every day. No matter how many wins you've racked up or how many challenges you've faced, each morning is a chance to ask yourself, what can I do today to get better? This mindset has been a game changer for me. It reminds me that success isn't something you achieve once and forget about. It's something you work toward every single day. When you wake up with ambition, you approach each day with purpose. You see opportunities where others see obstacles. You find solutions where others see problems. And most importantly, you keep moving forward no matter what. Takeaways. 1. Stay hungry. Success isn't permanent. Keep striving, learning, and growing every day. 2. Set bigger goals. As soon as you hit one milestone, set your sights on the next challenge. 3. Recognize complacency. If things feel too easy, raise the bar to keep pushing yourself. 4. Surround yourself with driven people. The right environment fuels hunger and growth. 5. Focus on the long game. Hunger isn't about quick wins. It's about building momentum and staying consistent over time. 6. Tie hunger to purpose. Connect your drive to something bigger than yourself, like your family, legacy, or impact. Staying hungry keeps you moving forward, but sometimes you stumble. How do you pick yourself up after a setback, or even just a mediocre day? It starts with embracing the idea that Chapter 9. Every day is a new day. You can't change the past, but you can shape your future, starting today. One of the greatest gifts you have is the ability to start fresh. No matter what happened yesterday, the wins, the losses, the mistakes, you have the power to begin again each morning. This mindset is crucial for success. Too often people get stuck dwelling on the past. They replay failures, second-guess decisions, or even rest on the high of past victories. But focusing on what's behind you keeps you from moving forward. The real magic happens when you learn to wake up each day with a clean slate and a renewed focus on what's ahead. Turning failures into fuel. Failure is inevitable, but what you do with it is entirely up to you. You can let it hold you back, or you can use it as fuel to propel you forward. I've had my fair share of failures, deals that fell apart, businesses that didn't work out, and decisions I wish I could take back. But here's what I've learned. Failure is only final if you let it be. Every time I hit a roadblock, I remind myself that today is a new opportunity to try again. The lessons I've learned from those setbacks make me better, sharper, and more prepared for what's next. When you approach each day as a fresh start, failure becomes a stepping stone instead of a dead end. Resetting your focus. Success isn't just about hard work. It's about focus. And the truth is, focus can slip. Distractions creep in, priorities shift, and before you know it, you're spinning your wheels without making progress. That's why it's so important to reset your focus daily. Start each morning by asking yourself, what's my top priority today? What's one thing I can do that will move me closer to my goals? For me, this practice has been a game changer. I use a simple journal to map out my priorities and keep myself on track. Some days, my focus is on building relationships. Other days, it's on closing deals or learning something new. The point is to start each day with intention, so you don't waste time or energy on things that don't matter. The power of momentum. When you treat every day as a new opportunity, you begin to build momentum. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in success. It's what keeps you moving forward, even when things get tough. But here's the catch. Momentum doesn't happen on its own. It's something you create, one small step at a time. I've seen this play out countless times in my career. The days when I showed up consistently, when I made the calls, knocked on the doors, and put in the work, were the days that laid the foundation for bigger wins. Even if it didn't feel like I was making progress in the moment, those small actions added up over time. Momentum works both ways. When you show up and stay consistent, it grows. But when you stop, when you let distractions, doubt, or laziness take over, it fades. That's why it's so important to treat every day as an opportunity to keep building, no matter how small the steps might seem. Gratitude, the morning mindset shift. One of the simplest but most effective ways to start each day fresh is by practicing gratitude. It sounds simple, but gratitude shifts your mindset in a big way. Instead of focusing on what's wrong or what's missing, you focus on what's good, what's working, and what you have to be thankful for. Every morning, I take a few minutes to reflect on 3 things I'm grateful for. It could be something big, like my family or my health, or something small, like a good cup of coffee or a productive meeting the day before. That small habit changes the tone of my entire day. Gratitude doesn't just make you feel good. It helps you approach challenges with a positive attitude. It reminds you of how far you've come and why you're working so hard in the first place. Progress over perfection. When you wake up each day with a clean slate, it's important to remember that you don't have to be perfect. Progress is the goal, not perfection. There have been plenty of days when I didn't check off every item on my to-do list or didn't feel like I was at my best. But instead of beating myself up over it, I focused on what I did accomplish. Even a little progress is better than none. For me, especially after facing failures or setbacks, turning that page and getting a clean slate often comes down to mindset and small, tangible actions. I tell myself, I need to accomplish specific things today to feel accomplished and regain momentum. Sometimes it's simple things you read about, like making your bed or brushing your teeth. small wins to start the day. For me, it often looks like committing to a 30-minute walk or dedicating 30 to 60 minutes to education, listening to an audiobook, or watching an educational program where I can learn something visually. When I do those things, even if the previous day was rough, I feel like I'm learning, moving forward, and ending the current day with a sense of accomplishment. It helps reset my focus. The key is to keep showing up. Some days will be better than others, and that's okay. What matters is that you don't let a bad day turn into a bad week or a bad month. Reset, refocus, and keep moving forward. Every day is a choice. Here's the truth. Every single day, you have a choice. You can choose to dwell on the past, on what didn't work, what went wrong, or what could have been. Or you can choose to focus on the present and the future. The most successful people aren't the ones who avoid failure or never make mistakes. They're the ones who wake up every day and choose to move forward, no matter what. They don't let yesterday's challenges define today's opportunities. When you embrace this mindset, you take control of your life. You stop waiting for the right time or the perfect circumstances and start creating your own momentum. The ripple effect. When you treat every day as a new beginning, you create a ripple effect. The small, intentional actions you take today don't just impact your immediate goals, they set the stage for future opportunities. Think about it like planting seeds. Each call you make, each relationship you nurture, and each step you take toward your goals is a seed that will grow over time. You might not see the results right away, but if you stay consistent, those seeds will eventually turn into something incredible. The beauty of the ripple effect is that it compounds over time. The more days you show up and give your best, the bigger the impact you'll create. Takeaways. 1. Start fresh. Every day, yesterday is gone and tomorrow isn't here yet. Focus on making today count. 2. Turn failures into fuel. Use setbacks as opportunities to learn, grow, and come back stronger. 3. Reset your focus. Daily. Begin each day by identifying your top priorities and acting with intention. 4. Build momentum. Small, consistent actions add up over time. Keep showing up, even when it feels slow. 5. Practice gratitude. Shift your mindset by focusing on what's going well and what you're thankful for. Starting fresh each day helps you move past setbacks, but to truly reach big goals, you also have to fundamentally change how you view those setbacks in the first place. You need to Chapter 10. Prepare to lose. Only those who dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly. Robert F. Kennedy. Let's get one thing straight. Losing isn't the opposite of winning, it's part of the process. Every success story you've ever heard includes moments of failure, rejection, and setbacks. The difference between people who succeed and people who don't is simple. Successful people know how to handle defeat, and they aren't afraid of it. If you want to play big, you have to be willing to fail big. That doesn't mean being reckless, but it does mean accepting that losses are inevitable on the path to success. Instead of fearing them, you need to prepare for them, learn from them, and use them to fuel your next move. The reality of losing. Here's the truth. No one likes to come up short. Whether it's a failed deal, a missed opportunity, or a bad decision, losing stings. It's frustrating, humbling, and sometimes downright painful. But it's also necessary. I've lost plenty of times in my career. Deals have fallen apart. Businesses haven't worked out. And I've made mistakes that cost me money, time, and energy. But every one of those losses taught me something valuable. They forced me to rethink my approach, improve my skills, and come back stronger. Losing is inevitable, but staying down isn't. The key is to use each setback as a stepping stone, not a stumbling block. Why you need to embrace losing. Most people fear losing because they think it defines them. They worry that if they fail, it means they're not good enough, smart enough, or capable enough. But here's the truth. Defeat doesn't define you. Your response to it does. When you embrace coming up short, you give yourself permission to take risks. You stop playing it safe and start aiming higher. And the higher you aim, the more you'll accomplish, even if it comes with a few losses along the way. One of the best pieces of advice I've ever received is this: if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. If everything you're doing feels easy, you're not pushing yourself. Growth happens when you step outside of your comfort zone, and that means taking risks, making mistakes, and sometimes not succeeding. My biggest losses were my greatest teachers. Some of the most valuable lessons I've learned came from my biggest setbacks. Early in my real estate career, I made a deal that I was sure would be a home run. I rushed into it, confident that I had everything figured out. I skipped a few steps, ignored a couple of red flags, and trusted my instincts instead of doing my homework. The result? The deal fell apart, and I lost a significant amount of money. At the time, it felt devastating. But when I took a step back and analyzed what went wrong, I realized that failure was my best teacher. That one bad deal taught me more about preparation, due diligence, and negotiation than any success ever could. Here's the thing about losing. It gives you clarity. It forces you to confront your weaknesses, sharpen your skills, and reevaluate your approach. If I hadn't gone through that loss, I wouldn't have developed the systems and processes that have made me successful today. The cost versus investment mindset. One crucial mindset shift needed, especially when facing potential losses or deciding on mentorship, is viewing expenditures as investments rather than costs. Think about how we traditionally view college. People talk about the cost of tuition, but if someone is pursuing a degree to become a doctor or engineer, they understand it's an investment in their future earning potential. We need to apply that same thinking to other forms of education, including mentorship programs or business coaching. When faced with a $30,000 program fee, the immediate reaction might be, that's a huge cost. But reframing it as, this is a $30,000 investment in my skills and future success, changes everything. It shifts the focus from scarcity to potential ROI. Viewing education broadly, whether it's college, trade school, or specialized coaching, as an investment cultivates a mindset geared towards growth and future returns, rather than getting stuck on the upfront cost. The fear of losing is worse than losing itself. Most people are so afraid of failing that they never even try. They talk themselves out of opportunities, convince themselves it's not the right time, or avoid risks altogether. But here's what I've learned. The fear of defeat is almost always worse than the loss itself. Take public speaking, for example. Early in my career, I avoided it at all costs because I was terrified of messing up in front of an audience. But when I finally stepped onto that stage for the first time, something incredible happened. Even though I stumbled over my words and felt like I wasn't doing great, I survived. And the next time I got on stage, it was a little easier. The fear I had built up in my head was far worse than the actual experience. The same is true for most things in life. Once you face your fear and take the leap, you realize that losing isn't as catastrophic as you imagined. Preparing for the inevitable. If you know setbacks are inevitable, the best thing you can do is prepare for them. That doesn't mean expecting to fail, but it does mean having a plan for how you'll handle difficulties when they happen. Here are a few ways to prepare for losses. Have a safety net. Whether it's financial reserves, a strong support system, or backup plans, having a safety net gives you the confidence to take risks without fear of total collapse. Learn from others. Seek out mentors and peers who have faced similar challenges. Learn from their mistakes so you can avoid making the same ones. Reframe failure. Instead of seeing a loss as the end, view it as part of the process. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I improve? Focus on resilience. Build habits that help you bounce back quickly, like journaling, reflecting, and seeking feedback. Resilience is a skill, and the more you practice it, the stronger you'll become. The connection between losing and winning. Here's a paradox. Losing and winning are two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. Every big win I've had in my career is tied to a risk I took, and every risk carried the potential for loss. Think about it like this. If you're playing it safe, you might avoid losing, but you're also avoiding opportunities to win big. The people who achieve extraordinary success are the ones who are willing to take those risks, knowing full well that they might fail. When I decided to pivot into a new major business venture, I had no guarantee it would work. I had to invest time, energy, and resources into something completely new, and there was always the chance it would fall flat. But I believed in the opportunity, took the leap, and trusted the process. And that risk paid off in ways I couldn't have imagined. The takeaway? You can't win big if you're not willing to lose big. How to develop a losing mindset. One of the most counterintuitive lessons I've learned is this. You need to develop a mindset that welcomes defeat. That doesn't mean you aim to fail. It means you stop fearing it. When you embrace losing as part of the process, you take away its power. Here's how you can develop this mindset. Detach your ego. Losing doesn't mean you're a failure. Separate your self-worth from the outcome and focus on the effort and growth instead. Celebrate the attempt. Every time you step outside your comfort zone, you're growing, whether you win or lose. Celebrate the fact that you tried. Stay curious. Treat losses like experiments. Ask questions like, what went wrong? What worked? What can I do differently next time? Focus on the big picture. Remember that every loss is a stepping stone toward your bigger goals. It's part of the journey, not the destination. How losing builds character. If success builds confidence, losing builds character. There's something about getting knocked down and getting back up that changes you. It makes you tougher, more resilient, and more focused. I've seen this play out in my own life and in the lives of others. The people I admire most aren't the ones who've had smooth, easy roads to success. They're the ones who faced adversity, taken risks, and kept going no matter what. Think about it. The most successful entrepreneurs, athletes, and leaders all have stories of failure. They didn't let those losses define them. They let them shape them. For me, the setbacks I've faced in business have made me more empathetic, more resourceful, and more determined. They've taught me to appreciate the wins even more and to never take success for granted. Winning after losing. There's no better feeling than bouncing back from a loss. When you've struggled, failed, and doubted yourself, a win means so much more. It's proof that all the effort, risk, and resilience were worth it. One of my favorite examples is when I landed a big deal shortly after a string of failures. I had just gone through a tough stretch where nothing seemed to be going right. Deals were falling apart, and I was questioning whether I was on the right path. But instead of giving up, I doubled down on my efforts. I revisited the fundamentals, learned from my mistakes, and kept putting myself out there. When that deal finally came through, it wasn't just about the money or the recognition. It was about proving to myself that I could rise above failure, and once you've done that, nothing can stop you. Key takeaways. 1. Don't fear losing. Accept that losses are part of the process and use them as opportunities to grow. 2. Prepare for setbacks. Build a safety net. Seek advice from mentors and develop resilience to bounce back quickly. 3. Take bigger risks. You can't win big if you're not willing to lose big. Push past your comfort zone. 4. Learn from every loss. Analyze your failures and adjust your approach to avoid repeating mistakes. 5. Focus on the journey. Winning feels even better when you've overcome challenges along the way. Learning to handle setbacks is crucial, but you don't have to learn every lesson the hard way. There's immense value in looking to those who have already navigated the path. It's time to Chapter 11. Think about the titans before you. If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. Isaac Newton. No matter what industry you're in or what goal you're chasing, someone has already been where you are. They've faced the challenges, overcome the obstacles, and achieved the kind of success you're aiming for. These are the titans, the trailblazers, innovators, and visionaries who set the standard. If you want to succeed, you need to learn from them. Their stories aren't just inspiring, they're roadmaps. They show you what's possible and, more importantly, how to get there. Learning from those who've done it. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make is trying to figure everything out on their own. They waste time, energy, and resources reinventing the wheel when they could just study the people who've already accomplished what they want to do. When I first started in real estate, I didn't know what I was doing. But instead of stumbling blindly, I found mentors, people who had been in the game for years and could teach me the ropes. They shared their wins, their losses, and the lessons they had learned along the way. It's important to recognize that mentorship exists in many forms, beyond just formal coaching. Think about doctors. After medical school, they go through residency, working intensely under experienced physicians. That residency is mentorship, learning through apprenticeship. Most professions have similar structures. Your manager, a coach, a senior colleague, these are all forms of mentorship. Seeking guidance isn't a sign of weakness. It's how professionals hone their craft. Embrace the learning opportunities available through the experienced people already around you. Here's what I realized. Success leaves clues. If you pay attention to what successful individuals are doing, you can skip the trial and error phase and fast-track your own growth. Stand on their shoulders. There's a famous quote that says, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." That's what learning from the trailblazers is all about. You don't have to start from scratch. You can build on the knowledge, strategies, and successes of those who came before you. For example, one of my biggest influences has been the book Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. The concept of focusing on who can help you achieve your goals instead of obsessing over how changed the way I approach business. It taught me the value of building a team and leveraging the expertise of others instead of trying to do everything myself. By studying those who achieved great things, I've learned how to think bigger, act smarter, and accomplish more than I ever could on my own. Applying the lessons of the Titans. The greatest thing about the giants before you is that they didn't just succeed, they left behind blueprints. Their habits, mindsets, and strategies are all accessible if you're willing to study them. The key is to not just admire their success, but to break down how they got there and apply those lessons to your own journey. Finding the right mentor or role model to learn from at the right time is crucial. My journey in commercial real estate highlights this. After my initial work with Marco, focusing on C and D class properties, I connected with Scott Scheel. Scott introduced me to triple net, NNN leases, and AB class properties, a completely different approach I hadn't considered viable. Learning that tenants could cover taxes, insurance, and repairs under long-term leases was revolutionary. Scott's Commercial Academy events were pivotal. They put me in rooms with industry leaders. Making the most of those opportunities meant being willing to be vulnerable, asking what felt like dumb questions to truly understand complex strategies. That willingness to learn directly from experts, even when intimidated, was essential to applying their lessons and growing rapidly in that new field. Don't be afraid to seek out the titans in your field and ask the basic questions. It's how you build a solid foundation by applying their wisdom. Here's what I learned. Success is often less about talent and more about habits. The trailblazers didn't become great overnight. They succeeded because they were consistent, disciplined, and willing to learn from their mistakes. Think big, start small. One of the most valuable lessons I've learned from studying successful people is the power of thinking big while starting small. Giants didn't start with massive empires. They started with one idea, one step, and one opportunity. Take someone like Elon Musk. Today, he's leading companies that are shaping the future of energy, transportation, and space exploration. But he didn't start there. He began with smaller ventures like Zip2 and PayPal, and used the momentum from those successes to tackle bigger and bigger challenges. The same principle applies to your journey. You don't have to figure everything out right away. Focus on taking the first step and doing it well. Once you gain momentum, you can build on it and expand your vision. The power of role models. Having accomplished figures to look up to isn't just about strategy, it's also about belief. When you see someone who's achieved what you're striving for, it shows you that it's possible. It shifts your mindset from, "Can I do this?" to, "How can I do this?" One of the titans I admire is Walt Disney. His story isn't just about creativity. It's about resilience and persistence over the long haul. He faced numerous failures and setbacks before achieving monumental success. It's also worth noting that some of his greatest triumphs, like the opening of Disneyland, came when he was in his 50s. He kept believing in his vision and failing forward until he made it happen. He's not alone. Think about Colonel Sanders, who didn't franchise Kentucky Fried Chicken until he was in his 60s. These individuals remind us that success doesn't have an age limit. Don't give up on your shot just because you think it's too late. Keep pushing. Keep believing. That's the power of role models. They remind you that the road to success isn't straight or easy, but it's worth it. What Titans teach about resilience. If there's one universal trait that all great achievers share, it's resilience. Every single one of them has faced failure, rejection, and setbacks, but they didn't let those moments define them. Instead, they used those challenges as fuel to keep going. One of my favorite shows, which I watch every year, is The Men That Built America, along with its spin-offs like The Food That Built America. Watching the stories of figures like Cornelius Vanderbilt, John D. Rockefeller, Henry Ford, and J.P. Morgan, the biggest things I take away are their incredible perseverance and their unwavering belief in themselves. That's crucial. Take Steve Jobs, for example. In 1985, he was fired from Apple, the very company he co-founded. For most people, that kind of loss would have been devastating, but Jobs didn't stop. He used that time to launch new ventures like Pixar, and when the opportunity came, he returned to Apple stronger and more innovative than ever. Studying these figures isn't just about business lessons either. You learn about their lives. For instance, J.P. Morgan grew up rich because his dad was a banker, but they didn't have a great relationship. Seeing things like that reinforces my own priorities. It makes me think about how I want to be with my family, the kind of relationships I want to nurture. I want that connection. I want to build a legacy-type family, not just a business empire. Learning from the Titans informs not just the push and perseverance needed for success, but also the kind of life you want to build around it. Here's the lesson. Success isn't about avoiding failure. It's about how you respond when things don't go your way. The greats don't see failure as the end, they see it as part of the process. If you want to emulate their success, you have to embrace resilience as one of your core traits. The value of learning their systems. Another powerful lesson from the Trailblazers is the importance of systems. Successful people don't rely on luck or random efforts. They have repeatable processes that guide their actions. These systems allow them to scale their success, stay consistent, and minimize errors. For example, I learned early on in my real estate career that winging it wasn't going to cut it. I had to develop a system for analyzing deals, following up with leads, and managing my time. I borrowed ideas from successful investors, adapted them to my needs, and built systems that worked for me. When you study successful individuals, don't just look at what they achieved, study how they achieved it. What habits do they swear by? What tools do they use? What routines keep them focused and productive? The answers to these questions can save you years of trial and error. Giving credit to those who came before. One of the most humbling parts of success is realizing how much you owe to the people who paved the way. No one achieves greatness in isolation, whether it's a mentor, a role model, or an entire generation of innovators. There's always someone who set the stage for your success. I think about this often when I reflect on my mentors and the giants I've studied. Their knowledge, experiences, and sacrifices made it possible for me to learn, grow, and build the life I have today. That's why I believe in paying it forward. Just as the trailblazers before you have shared their wisdom, it's your responsibility to share what you've learned with others. When you honor the people who've come before you, you carry their legacy forward, and in doing so, you create a legacy of your own. Key takeaways. 1. Success. Leaves. Clues study the habits, strategies, and systems of those who've already succeeded. 2. Learn from mentors, formal and informal. Recognize and embrace learning opportunities from experienced individuals in various forms. 3. Resilience is non-negotiable. Titans don't avoid failure. They use it as fuel to push forward. 4. Start small, think big. Focus on the next step, and let momentum build your vision over time. 5. Learn their systems, don't reinvent the wheel. Borrow and adapt the processes that work. 6. Pay it forward. Honor those who've paved the way by sharing your knowledge and lifting others up. Learning from those who came before is powerful, but the world keeps changing. To truly succeed long-term, you also need to commit to your own ongoing development. You must. Chapter 12. Stay educated. The more that you read, the more things you will know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go. Dr. Seuss. The world is changing faster than ever. Industries are evolving, technology is advancing, and new opportunities are constantly emerging. To stay ahead, you have to stay educated. Learning isn't something you finish when you graduate or hit a certain milestone. It's a lifelong process. If you want to succeed, you need to make education a priority. It's not just about gaining knowledge. It's about staying curious, adaptable, and open to new ideas. The most successful people in the world aren't the ones who know it all. They're the ones who are always looking to learn more. The importance of staying curious. Curiosity is one of the most underrated traits of successful people. It's what drives you to ask questions, seek answers, and explore new possibilities. Without inquisitiveness, you become stagnant. For me, curiosity has been a driving force throughout my career. When I first got into real estate, I didn't know much about the industry, but I was eager to learn, so I asked questions, read books, and attended seminars. That curiosity helped me build a foundation of knowledge that I've been building on ever since. That same eagerness pushed me into new business ventures later on. Often, I didn't know much about the specific field when I started, but I saw an opportunity and dove in. I spent hours studying the market, learning the rules, and figuring out how to communicate value. Curiosity turned what could have been intimidating challenges into rewarding ventures. Why reading books matters. People often ask why reading books or pursuing continuous education is so important. Some argue reading a book won't automatically make you successful. And they're right, but that misses the point, at least for me. For me, staying informed, whether through reading, listening to podcasts, or watching documentaries, isn't about finding magic bullets. It's about keeping my mind active and in the game. It keeps me asking questions, learning more than I knew yesterday, and staying motivated. When I go even a few days without dedicating time, even just 30 minutes to an hour, to some form of learning, I feel the difference. My thinking isn't as sharp, my motivation dips slightly. Continuous education is the fuel that keeps my mind moving forward and ensures I'm always learning and growing. You have to find your own motivators, but for me, that daily dose of education is essential. Learning from every experience. Education isn't just about books or classrooms. It's about learning from everything around you. Every conversation, challenge, and mistake is an opportunity to grow if you're paying attention. Some of the best lessons I've learned came from unexpected places. Early in my career, I had a deal fall through because I misunderstood a contract clause. At first, I was frustrated, but instead of dwelling on the mistake, I took it as a learning opportunity. I spent hours reviewing contracts, learning the terminology, and making sure I never missed something like that again. That experience taught me something important. Education isn't always formal. Sometimes it's the hard knocks that teach you the most valuable lessons. Reframing the conversation. Education beyond college. Understanding different perspectives and adapting your approach based on what you learn is also a crucial part of staying educated, especially in communication. I saw this firsthand with my own son about 3 years ago. He's 18 now, but when he was 15, he told me flat out that he didn't want to go to college. Even though I have a college degree myself, and I intellectually understand that the ROI on a traditional degree has changed over the last few decades, hearing him say that still pierced me a bit. But I also understood why he felt that way. He was seeing narratives all over social media about highly successful people, maybe a Mark Zuckerberg who dropped out, or questioning if Elon Musk even went. And the message was often that college wasn't necessary if you just took action. So, instead of arguing, I took a few days to think about it. I realized the word college itself carried baggage for him. I decided to shift the language. I told him, okay, instead of using the word college, let's start using the word education. College is one path under the umbrella of education. But what education are you going to pursue after high school? It took about 2 months, but then he started talking about wanting to go to a school in southern Utah called Utah Tech University. It struck me as funny because in the back of my head, I thought, that is a college. But because we had shifted the conversation to the broader concept of education, his mindset shifted too. He could see Utah Tech as a viable educational path that felt right for him, without the resistance the word college had triggered. Reframing the concept based on understanding his perspective, that was applying learning in real time. I've even shared that story on podcasts because it illustrates how understanding and adapting communication is a form of practical education. The key is to approach every situation with a mindset of, what can I learn from this? How can understanding this perspective help me adapt? Invest in your education. If you're serious about staying ahead, you need to be willing to invest in your education. That might mean spending money on books, courses, or seminars. It might mean hiring a coach or mentor, or it might mean dedicating time to learning a new skill or mastering a new tool. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on education throughout my career, on mentorship, conferences, and resources. Was it a big investment? Absolutely. But every dollar I spent came back to me many times over. Not just in financial gains, but in the skills and confidence I developed. Here's the thing, education is never a waste. Even if something doesn't work out the way you hoped, the knowledge you gain will always be an asset. And the more you know, the better equipped you'll be to take advantage of opportunities when they come your way. The role of mentors in lifelong learning. One of the smartest decisions I've ever made was seeking out mentors. No matter how much you read or research, there's no substitute for learning from someone who's already been where you want to go. A good mentor can fast-track your growth, help you avoid costly mistakes, and give you insights you might not find anywhere else. When I first started in real estate, my mentors taught me lessons that would have taken years to figure out on my own. They showed me how to analyze deals, build relationships, and think like an investor. Those lessons didn't just teach me real estate. They taught me how to approach every opportunity with curiosity and a willingness to learn. The key to benefiting from a mentor is to stay teachable. It's easy to let ego get in the way, especially when you've had some success, but the moment you think you know it all is the moment you stop growing. Staying relevant in a changing world. The world doesn't stand still, and neither can you. Whether it's new technology, shifting market trends, or evolving customer needs, staying relevant means staying informed. For example, when entering a complex new field, I often have to dive into a lot of technical details to fully understand it. Rules and requirements aren't static. They change over time. If I hadn't stayed up to date, I wouldn't have been able to serve clients effectively or grow the business. The same goes for any industry. If you're not actively learning, you're falling behind. Staying relevant isn't just about survival. It's about thriving. It's about positioning yourself as someone who's always ready for what's next. Make education a daily habit. Lifelong learning isn't something you do once in a while. It's a habit. Successful people don't just learn when it's convenient. They make it part of their daily routine. For me, this looks like reading every morning, listening to podcasts while driving, or watching a webinar during lunch. It doesn't have to be complicated or time-consuming. Even 15 minutes a day adds up over time. The point is to stay consistent. Commit to learning something new every day, no matter how small. Over weeks, months, and years, those small efforts compound into massive growth. As I tell my own kids, even those 30 to 60 minutes a day make a huge difference. You're surpassing people who aren't doing any education and getting further ahead. The competitive edge of education. Lifelong learning doesn't just help you grow. It gives you a competitive edge. In any field, the people who succeed aren't necessarily the smartest or the most talented. They're the ones who are constantly evolving, staying ahead of the curve, and using what they learn to create opportunities. I've seen this firsthand. In real estate, the most successful investors I know aren't the ones who've been in the business the longest. They're the ones who adapt the fastest. They're always looking for new tools, new strategies, and new ways to stay relevant in a changing market. When you make learning a priority, you set yourself apart. You become the person people turn to for advice, guidance, and solutions. You're not just keeping up, you're leading the way. Education fuels confidence. One of the most underrated benefits of education is the confidence it gives you. When you know your stuff, you approach challenges differently. You're not afraid to take risks, make decisions, or step into new opportunities because you trust your ability to figure things out. There's a reason I've been willing to take big leaps throughout my career. It's not because I've always known exactly what to do. It's because I've trusted my ability to learn, whether it was transitioning into commercial real estate or diving into a new business area. I knew that as long as I was willing to educate myself, I could handle whatever came my way. That confidence doesn't just come from knowledge, it comes from knowing that you're committed to growth, no matter what. Key takeaways, as 1. Curiosity is your superpower. Stay curious and ask questions. It's the foundation of lifelong learning. 2. Learn from experience. Every challenge, mistake, or conversation is an opportunity to grow and adapt. 3. Invest in education, spend time, money, and energy on learning. It's one of the best investments you can make. 4. Find a mentor. Learn from those who've been where you want to go. Their insights can save you time and effort. 5. Stay relevant. The world is always changing. Keep learning to stay ahead of the curve. 6. Make learning a habit. Commit to daily growth. Small, consistent efforts compound into big results over time. Staying educated keeps you knowledgeable and confident, but knowledge alone isn't enough. You also need to be keenly aware of the world around you, ready to spot chances others miss. You need to... Chapter 13. Stay alert. Opportunity is missed by most people because it is dressed in overalls and looks like work. Thomas Edison. In business and in life, the difference between success and missed chances often comes down to one thing: awareness. The most successful people aren't just hard workers or risk takers. They're sharp observers. They stay alert, paying attention to the details and spotting possibilities that others overlook. The truth is, opportunities don't always present themselves as obvious choices. They're often hidden in the small moments, the unexpected conversations, or the challenges disguised as setbacks. If you're not paying attention, you'll miss them. Seeing what others don't. One of the most valuable skills you can develop is the ability to see potential where others see problems. When I first learned about a complex government relief program, most people didn't understand it or dismissed it as too complicated. But instead of walking away, I dug deeper. I saw a chance to create value for business owners who needed help navigating the process. That decision to stay aware, to look beyond the surface, paid off significantly. What started as a niche idea turned into a venture that helped thousands of companies. This same principle applies to any industry. The people who succeed aren't just the ones who work hard, they're the ones who look harder. They ask questions, explore possibilities, and challenge assumptions. Avoiding tunnel vision. One of the biggest challenges to staying observant is tunnel vision. It's easy to get so focused on your current goals or routines that you miss what's happening around you. I've fallen into this trap before. Early in my career, I was so focused on closing real estate deals that I didn't see other possibilities to grow my business. It wasn't until I started broadening my perspective, talking to people in different industries, attending workshops, and staying open to new ideas that I realized how much I was missing. Staying alert means stepping back and taking a wider view. It means asking yourself, what am I not seeing? What possibilities might be right in front of me? The power of listening. Being aware isn't just about watching for openings, it's also about listening. Some of the best chances I've ever encountered came from conversations. Whether it was a casual chat, a meeting with a mentor, or feedback from a client, listening closely often revealed ideas or insights I hadn't considered. I remember one particular conversation with a business owner struggling to access certain relief programs during a crisis. He was frustrated, overwhelmed, and unsure of where to start. As I listened, I realized there was a huge gap. Business owners needed expert guidance, and I could provide it. That conversation sparked the idea for a service line that became one of the most impactful ventures of my career. The lesson? Pay attention to what people are saying, especially when they're sharing their pain points. Problems are opportunities in disguise, and if you're listening, you can position yourself as the solution. Trusting your instincts. Staying attentive also means learning to trust your gut. Sometimes possibilities won't come with a neon sign or a clear roadmap. They'll show up as a hunch, a feeling, or a sense that something is worth exploring. I've had moments where I couldn't fully explain why I was drawn to a particular deal, idea, or partnership. I just knew it felt right. And while not every instinct has been correct, many of my biggest wins have come from trusting my gut and acting on it. Your instincts are like muscles. The more you use them, the stronger they get. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay connected to your goals, and your instincts will guide you toward the right openings. Staying alert to risks. Being observant isn't just about spotting chances, it's also about identifying risks. Success isn't just about what you say yes to, it's also about what you avoid. In my early days in real estate, I almost got involved in a deal that looked great on paper, but had hidden risks I didn't notice at first. It was only because I stayed sharp, double-checking the numbers, asking tough questions, and taking my time, that I avoided what could have been a costly mistake. The same awareness that helps you spot opportunities can also protect you from pitfalls. By paying attention to the details, staying curious, and asking the right questions, you can avoid unnecessary losses and keep moving forward. Finding opportunities in setbacks. One of the biggest misconceptions about opportunity is that it only shows up when things are going well. In reality, some of the best chances come during times of struggle. Staying aware means looking for the silver lining in every setback. When I was struggling to get traction in my early real estate career, I learned this lesson firsthand. A deal I was counting on fell through, and I was left scrambling to figure out my next move. Instead of dwelling on the loss, I started looking for other properties and talking to different investors. That failure pushed me to expand my network and improve my approach. And as a result, I ended up closing a deal that was even better than the one I lost. Spend time observing your industry, studying trends, and listening to feedback. Then, take calculated action based on what you've learned. This balance allows you to stay informed while still moving forward. For example, before entering a new market or taking on a big project, I make it a point to do my homework. I research, gather insights, and talk to people who know more than I do. But once I have enough information to make an informed decision, I don't hesitate. I act. Success comes from staying aware, staying prepared, and knowing when it's time to move. Making alertness a habit. Like any skill, staying aware takes practice. It's not something you do once. It's something you cultivate over time. Here are a few habits that have helped me stay sharp. Be present. Put down your phone, step away from distractions, and focus on what's happening around you. The more present you are, the more you'll notice. Ask questions. Curiosity is key to staying attentive. Ask questions about everything: your industry, your competitors, your own performance. Reflect daily. Spend a few minutes each day reviewing what you've learned, what you've noticed, and what possibilities might be on the horizon. Stay connected. Surround yourself with people who challenge you, inspire you, and bring fresh perspectives. The more you build these habits into your routine, the easier it becomes to spot opportunities and avoid risks. The power of staying alert. Awareness is a skill that separates the great from the good. It's the ability to see what others miss, act when others hesitate, and pivot when others stay stuck. It's not about being lucky. It's about being prepared, observant, and ready to seize the moment when it comes. The truth is, opportunities are everywhere. They don't always look obvious, and they don't always show up at the perfect time. But when you train yourself to stay alert, you'll find them in the challenges, the conversations, and the quiet moments others overlook. The world is full of people who wait for chances to find them. Be the person who stays sharp, seeks them out, and creates them when none exist. Key takeaways. 1. Opportunities. Whisper. Stay sharp and pay attention. Most opportunities aren't obvious. 2. Ask questions. Stay curious and explore the potential in every situation. 3. Learn from setbacks. Even failures and struggles can lead to new opportunities if you stay alert. 4. Balance action and observation. Take time to analyze, but don't hesitate to act when the time is right. 5. Make alertness a habit. Practice being present, curious, and reflective every day. Staying alert helps you find opportunities and avoid risks, often by interacting with others. How you manage those interactions is critical, which leads to our next point. Chapter 14. Try not to burn a bridge. The bridge you burn today may be the one you need to cross tomorrow. In business and in life, relationships are everything. Whether it's a mentor, a client, a colleague, or even a competitor, every connection you make has the potential to shape your future in ways you can't always predict. That's why one of the most important principles I've learned is this: try not to burn bridges. It's easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment. Maybe a deal falls apart, a client frustrates you, or someone doesn't deliver what they promised. But no matter how justified you feel, severing ties completely rarely works in your favor. The business world is smaller than you think, and reputations travel fast. Why bridges matter. When I look back at my career, so many of my biggest opportunities came from relationships I nurtured over time. A mentor who introduced me to an investor, a former client who referred me to a friend, a casual acquaintance who became a business partner. If I had destroyed those connections early on, whether out of frustration, impatience, or pride, I would have missed out on opportunities that changed the trajectory of my life. The truth is, you never know how someone might factor into your journey later on. That's why it's so important to approach every interaction with respect, professionalism, and an open mind. Learning the hard way. I'd be lying if I said I never burned a bridge. Early in my career, I made mistakes that cost me valuable connections. One time, I let my ego get the best of me during a negotiation. I was so focused on winning the deal that I didn't consider the other person's perspective. The deal fell apart, and the relationship was damaged beyond repair. It wasn't just the deal I lost, it was the long-term potential of that connection. I learned the hard way that burning bridges can cost you more than you realize. The ripple effect of relationships. One of the most powerful lessons I've learned is that the way you treat people doesn't just affect your relationship with them. It affects how they talk about you to others. Your reputation is like a ripple in a pond. Every interaction you have creates waves, and those waves can either open doors or close them. I've had deals come my way years after meeting someone because they remembered how I treated them. I've also seen people miss out on opportunities because their name was associated with being difficult or unreliable. It's a reminder that every interaction matters, even the ones that seem small or insignificant at the time. How to avoid burning bridges. Avoiding severed connections doesn't mean you have to agree with everyone or accept every situation. It's about navigating disagreements and challenges with integrity. Here are a few strategies that have worked for me. Stay professional. Even when emotions run high, keep your cool. Responding with anger or frustration might feel good in the moment, but it rarely leads to a positive outcome. Find common ground. When disagreements arise, focus on shared goals or values. A little empathy can go a long way in resolving conflicts. Be honest but kind. If you need to walk away from a deal or relationship, do it respectfully. Burning bridges often comes from how you leave, not the fact that you left. Apologize when necessary. If you've made a mistake or hurt someone, own up to it. A sincere apology can rebuild trust and repair a connection before it's too late. The long-term benefits. When you make it a habit to preserve relationships, you set yourself up for long-term success. People remember those who treated them well, especially during tough situations. They're more likely to recommend you, work with you again, or help you when you need it. In my experience, some of the most rewarding opportunities didn't come from deals I closed. They came from connections I nurtured over time. People I worked with years ago have come back into my life with referrals, partnerships, or advice that shaped my career. When walking away is necessary. Sometimes preserving a relationship doesn't mean staying in it forever. There are moments in business and life where it's necessary to part ways. Maybe a deal isn't working out, or the values of a client or partner don't align with your own. Walking away is okay, but how you do it makes all the difference. I've had situations where I needed to exit a deal because it wasn't right for me or my business. Instead of storming off or severing ties entirely, I focused on being transparent and respectful. I explained my reasoning, offered suggestions for moving forward, and left the door open for future opportunities. One of those clients came back years later, this time with a deal that was a perfect fit. That wouldn't have happened if I had burned the bridge when I walked away the first time. Walking away doesn't have to mean cutting ties permanently. It can mean pausing a relationship or ending it in a way that leaves both parties feeling respected. Turning challenges into opportunities. Sometimes the connections that feel the most challenging at the moment can turn into the most valuable ones down the road. I've had clients who were difficult to work with in the beginning, but because I stayed patient and professional, those relationships grew into some of the most profitable partnerships of my career. One example that sticks with me is a real estate client who was skeptical and demanding during our initial meetings. I could have written them off or gotten frustrated, but instead, I took the time to address their concerns and prove my value. Not only did we close the deal, but they referred me to several other clients who became long-term partners. The lesson? Don't judge a connection by its early stages. Staying committed and professional can turn challenges into opportunities. The bridge. You didn't know you needed. You never know who might play a key role in your journey. A casual acquaintance, a competitor, or even someone who once told you no could end up being a pivotal connection down the road. I've seen this happen over and over. Someone I met briefly at a networking event reached out years later with a business opportunity. A competitor I treated with respect referred a client to me when they couldn't handle the workload. These unexpected connections happened because I made it a habit to treat every interaction as valuable, even if it didn't seem important at the time. The takeaway is simple. Treat everyone you meet like they're part of your long-term network, because they just might be. Building a legacy of trust. At the end of the day, your reputation is your legacy. It's what people remember about you long after the deals are done. When you focus on preserving connections, treating people with respect, and avoiding burned bridges, you build a legacy of trust. People want to work with, refer, and support those they can rely on. By prioritizing your relationships and maintaining your integrity, you're not just building a business, you're building a name that carries weight. Key takeaways. 1. Treat every relationship with care. You never know who might play a key role in your future success. 2. Handle disagreements with respect. Even when you need to walk away, do it professionally and kindly. 3. Focus on long-term relationships. Some of the best opportunities come years after the initial connection. 4. Turn challenges into wins. Difficult relationships can turn into valuable ones if you stay patient and professional. 5. Build a reputation of trust. Your legacy is built on how you treat people. Make it one you're proud of. Maintaining strong connections builds your reputation. These principles we've discussed: action, resilience, learning, awareness, relationships, all weave together on your journey. So let's bring it all together.
I'm back. It's me, Josh. Thank you for listening to this book in its entirety. I wanted to do this concept the same way I listened to a book with Tony Robbins called Money Master the Game, where he talks in the first chapter and the last chapter, the intro and the conclusion. And I'm going to spend about 30 seconds just saying thank you again for you listening to this book, hopefully you at least learn. I always tell people, if you can learn one thing from me in this book, I'd appreciate that. So hopefully it did. Hopefully it brought, some similarities to you of going through some fears. No matter where you're at in your life, I still go through those fears today. I still have what I have a harder candy shell than a lot of people. For instance, I even talked to someone early this morning that was saying that I'm really good at presentations. And I said to them, well, the presentation that I gave, I've done it 200 times. You're just starting. You got to take action. You have to take your shot. And that's how life has to be. And I'm grateful that I have a beautiful wife that's very supportive, that she's my rock. My kids are someone I think about all the time, that I can't wait when they are getting older, that they're going to be my business partners, with me and my wife right now. And anything that I've had success, it's because of my wife. It's because of her drive, her sometimes misunderstandings, not understanding what I'm doing to understand it more. And sometimes, and oftentimes she has better ideas than I originally had. And so I appreciate her. I appreciate all my partners and all of my different businesses. A lot of you guys know I'm just finishing a company called ERC Specialists. I had the awesome partners in that. I'm looking forward to my second book. In this book, I did not want to talk about anything with ERC and what we kind of went through in that endeavor. I look forward to getting my second book, and hopefully this would be good enough for you to listen to the second book. Thank you. Conclusion. Your journey is defined by the steps you take, the risks you embrace, and the lessons you learn along the way. You made it this far, which tells me something important about you. You're ready to take action, whether you're starting your first venture, working to level up your current career, or simply looking for a spark to reignite your goals. You've taken the most important step. You've decided to invest in yourself. Everything we've talked about, taking action, learning from mistakes, staying hungry, remembering your why, and preserving relationship is part of the bigger picture. That picture isn't just about building a business or reaching financial success. It's about creating a life you're proud of, one where you wake up every day excited to tackle new challenges and pursue your dreams. The road ahead. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this book, it's this: success is a journey, not a destination. The lessons we've covered don't end here. They're tools you'll carry with you as you navigate the twists and turns of your path. There will be days when it feels easy, and there will be days it feels impossible. On the hard days, remember why you started. Remember that every setback is an opportunity to grow. Every challenge is a chance to build resilience. And every small win is a step closer to your bigger goal. Create your legacy. At the end of the day, your success isn't just about you. It's about the legacy you'll leave behind. It's about the people you inspire, the lives you impact, the opportunities you create for those around you. Your journey is unique, but the principles that guide it are universal. Stay curious, stay alert, stay hungry. Build meaningful relationships. Embrace failure as part of the process, and keep your focus on the bigger picture. When you do that, you're not just creating success for yourself, you're creating a legacy that lasts. Final challenge. As you finish reading, I want to leave you with one final challenge. Take the first step. Whatever goal you've been thinking about, whatever dream has been tugging at you, start today. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to start, because the life you want is on the other side of the action. So what are you waiting for? The insights shared here are tools that only work if you use them. Go out there and take your shot. Then take another. Keep shooting, keep learning, and keep building the life you deserve. Your journey starts now. Thank you so much.
This has been Take Your Shot: How to Break Through the Fear, Start Playing to Win in Business and Life. Written by Josh Zieglowsky. Narrated by Robert Norman. Copyright 2025 by Josh Zieglowsky.